Hi guys and welcome to another Fool of the Week. This week's Fool is Esther McVey, the former Minister for Common Sense. Do you remember those good old days? Okay, so she was on Esther McVey Friendly GB News where she was pushing three things. First of all, Parliament to be recalled. Second, a state of emergency. And third, the Rwanda Bill to be rehashed or dusted off. Have a listen to this.
You've got as well a whole host of people who are prepared to do various elements of the smuggling. In this case, it was bringing the boat across. Now, this is like, and you think they would have learned from county lines. So you've got somebody right down the pecking order who's just getting a location, just getting some of the equipment, and he's got sort of a get out. So he is right down. So whenever Keir Starmer was talking about smashing the gangs, let's get real, he didn't have a chance. He should have listened to how difficult it is to do drugs and how difficult it is to do county lines. So, as you rightly say, we have got to take it into our own control and responsibility, not hand it to the people. And I've said Parliament needs to be recalled.
Okay. Parliament needs to be recalled. MPs need to be brought back to Westminster. For what? To do what? What would they do? What difference would it make? Reform UK and the Conservatives don't have a majority. So even if they did recall Parliament and they wanted to push through some sort of emergency legislation, they don't have the numbers. So what would be the point in recalling Parliament?
This is a state of emergency.
Okay, I'm sorry to be stopping it so often, but I have to break these things down. A state of emergency. Now, it's important to remember that people like Esther McVey were against lockdowns. But a state of emergency would be lockdowns on steroids because human rights would be suspended, extra powers would be given to the police, more than during the pandemic. But she's calling for a state of emergency, either because she doesn't understand what a state of emergency is or she's pretending not to, and I don't know which is worse in that case. Because a state of emergency under the Contingencies Act of 2004 sets a very high bar for such an emergency. It has to be a significant threat to human welfare, there has to be a threat to the environment, and there has to be a threat to national security. Now, is there a threat to human welfare as a result of these small boat crossings? I don't think so. Is there a threat to the environment? Well, maybe a few leaky petrol engines on these dinghies. And is there a threat to national security? Well, not really, because anyone who is coming across who could potentially be a threat to national security is being detained. Now, she doesn't seem to understand that Parliament, if they want to extend a state of emergency, it has to be voted on in Parliament. So the government would be able to start it off, but Parliament would have to agree to extend it. And once again, the Conservatives and Reform UK don't have a majority. Like they keep complaining about how Keir Starmer is acting like a dictator and they're asking for a state of emergency which would extend more powers to the executive. It would also require the devolved governments to be involved. So, for example, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland would have to cooperate with Westminster to respond to the threat. But what is the threat? They just keep saying we want a state of emergency, but they don't seem to understand what a state of emergency is and what the threat is. They keep saying, well, the threat is the asylum seekers. But just saying they're a threat does not make them a threat. There would be a huge cost involved as well, at a time when they keep saying, well, the government is spending too much money, because you have to mobilise emergency services, the military, emergency infrastructure has to be put in place. How is this all going to be paid for? Are you willing to see taxes increase to cover this cost? As a Conservative, I don't think so.
The numbers for immigration, we need to get everybody back. We've got to agree on what we're going to do, dust down the Rwanda plan immediately.
This is the cherry on the cake. Let's bring back the Rwanda plan, the Rwanda Bill. And what was the Rwanda Bill? Well, we're going to give £750 million to Rwanda to set aside accommodation. Oh, they actually sold it off. Okay. Well, we're going to give them money so we can send tens of thousands of... Oh, no. They actually said there's going to be a cap on how many people they'll take in. Okay, well, we'll send lots of people. Actually, no, we can't, because the Supreme Court has said that Rwanda is not a safe country. Do the Conservatives actually have any real plans, as opposed to let's just rehash Rwanda?
Because that's basically what Trump has based his scheme on, which is pretty...
Sorry, what? Trump has based his scheme on Rwanda? Donald Trump has said that he's closed the border, that he's refused to let people in. I don't know if that's actually true, because it's difficult to get a proper picture on that. But you're comparing apples and oranges here. People are crossing the English Channel and arriving in small boats on the English shore. How is that comparable to the US-Mexico border, where there's an actual barrier? There isn't a barrier. Like, just because you think there should be a barrier in the sea or something, it doesn't work out like that. Once again, these people are just looking at Donald Trump and saying, we should be like Donald Trump, not understanding that the United States is completely different and not understanding the powers of the President of the United States.
Pretty much stopped all of the immigrants coming over the Mexican border. He's got to do that. And then, as we all know, we've got to get out the ECHR and we've got to stop the Human Rights Act.
And then we just need to suspend people's human rights. That's it. Suspend protections to human rights. Because they keep saying we need to leave the ECHR in order to kick out the migrants. But in reality, it's about let's leave the European Convention on Human Rights so we can suspend protections to British people's rights. That's what it's about at the end of the day. They don't care really about immigrants. Immigrants are a tool, a vehicle in order to achieve that. But I've said before, I don't think the Conservatives will eventually go down this road, because there's no real value in doing so. It's rhetoric. And I hope I'm right. I could be wrong. They could really be acting like Nigel Farage. They could have been completely taken over by the complete and utter lunatics within the fringe of their party. They've been down that road before, but I don't think the Conservative Party are that stupid. Once again, I don't think so, and I have been wrong on other occasions in the past. But I don't think the UK will leave the European Convention on Human Rights, even if the Conservatives were back in power. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think, and I'll see you in the next Fool of the Week video.